Welcome to another episode of Washington in Focus. I'm your host, Tim Klauser, with the Center Square's Washington State investigative reporter, TJ Martinell. Coming on the heels of what's been called a mass shooting in the city of Seattle last weekend, in the aftermath, there was apparently a 5-hour delay in Mayor Katie Wilson addressing the press with the Seattle Police Department Chief Shon Barnes. We learned this morning that apparently Shon Barnes has been relieved of his duties as chief of Seattle Police. TJ, tell me, was the nearly 5-hour delay in communications after the shooting the reason that Shones was fired?
I think that there's a lot going on, and I think that what we're witnessing is the culmination of different issues and problems, systemic problems going on with structural command, leadership, and communication, and an understanding of who's responsible for what, and the ability to make decisions during a crisis. And so, I I think that we're still watching the dust settle. But somebody that I think that there's a lot of finger pointing and people in elected office trying to avoid blame for something either they did or they didn't do or weren't responsible for. So that's really we're kind of for anybody who's watched the Maltese Falcon, we're at the end of the movie where they're all figuring out who the fall guy's going to be.
Yeah, it's interesting to see how this is all playing out in the aftermath of this shooting and how particularly all the attention is around this press conference and the apparent delay in doing so. I mean, notably, we've seen a lot of conflicts in the Wilson administration since she's taken office. A few different people relieved of their duties, one being the parks director after taking a lot of trips out of state, some of those costs landing on local taxpayers. We recently learned that Shon Barnes, the SPD chief, his primary residence is in Chicago, and he's frequently in and out of the state. He had plans to leave Washington for about a month and didn't plan to come back until sometime in August. It looks like now that he's being relieved altogether. TJ, I mean, a lot of attention is being placed on Barnes, Wilson, and then Governor Ferguson in the timing of this press conference. I mean, you got some public records back, I
Yeah.
believe, from the governor's office showing some text messages between him and Katie Wilson. I mean,
Yeah.
with three of these people kind of headlining this issue right now, who ultimately bears responsibility here?
I mean, I, I'll just say this about the text messages is that's Governor Ferguson sending a very clear message. It's not his monkey, it's not his circus. I think that that's just what's going on. He's saying this is not what I'm responsible for. I mean, at the end of the day, it's Kate Wilson. She's the mayor of Seattle. This was a shooting that took place at a food festival in the city that she runs and manages, and the police department is underneath the mayor's office, so which is why she's has the authority to let Barnes go. And I think that as far as the delay is concerned, the text message that she sent to Governor Ferguson said there was likely to be a public conference. That I feel like since my story came out yesterday, I feel like there's a lot of people missing the significance of that, where there's controversy over this thing because of the delay of 5 hours. This could she's suggesting that the delay could have been even longer. So people could have gone to bed had no idea what was going on. And so the question is, what was the reason for the delay? And we don't know. But the reason why I think Governor Ferguson's office got these records back to me so quickly is because people were insinuating that the press conference had been delayed so that he could be there for a photo op. And I didn't watch the entire press conference. It didn't seem like Governor Ferguson said a whole lot. I think he just was asked to be there. He showed up and he's sitting around. He got there, I think, around 9, according to his communications director, and was sitting around there for an hour and a half, and not even knowing if there was going to be a press conference. And so finally, there was one at like almost 11 p.m. And so the question that remains is, what was the delay? And something that's important to do a distinction. There's the media availability, but what also was delayed was the police briefing where they were not providing information to the public about what had happened, what was being done, what can the public do to report, what is this, any description of the suspect. No information was coming out, And so the public was left in the dark for a critical number of hours where somebody could have seen the suspect who's still at large and reported them to the police and they could have been caught. Or the suspect could have gone off and killed someone else and they wouldn't have known it was the same suspect. So this is all that's coming out. And I think that we still don't know what the reason for the delay is. There's so many reasons for the delay. Was it because, the police chief wasn't in the uh, city at the time? He was out, yeah, I think in Dallas. Was it because Kate Wilson didn't want to provide information, and when she actually tried doing it, it was inaccurate information? So what caused her to get inaccurate information? And did she delay it in order to wait for Chief Barnes to be there so she didn't have to deal with this whole thing on her own? Or did they come across information about the suspects that they didn't know they wanted released to the public for reasons that we could still be looking at?
Yeah, and at the time of the shooting, the police chief was at a conference in Texas, and then reporters were told as they were waiting hours for this press conference to take place that SPD was waiting on dignitaries to get there, seemingly referring to Barnes there. And I believe that the mayor's office has refuted those statements since. But I mean, this comes on the heels of broader communications issues within the Wilson administration. I mean, they're currently looking to replace the communications director. I believe the person that was previously in that position recently left the administration. The mayor frequently encounters issues with the local media, especially TV stations, in doing on-air interviews or them catching her in certain situations and then her just ending the interview on the spot. So, I mean, are we likely to see anything fixed from Barnes being relieved of duties, or is that more so just deferring blame from the broader communication issues facing the mayor?
I mean, I think it really is going to have to come down to voters making de- making decisions about who they want in public office, because this is just a fact. Kate Wilson had no prior experience governing even a small little town like Roslyn in central Washington. She has no prior experience managing or leading anything of this of a city of this size. She wasn't even paying her own bills. Her father was financially supporting her. So I think the question is why. I would want to hear from for somebody who voted for her supporters saying, why did you think she was going to be able to handle this well? Because we're dealing, I mean, there's the dynamics are really fascinating. You've got her with no background experience in leadership whatsoever. You've got Barnes, who has a history of being at different police departments and getting and having controversial stuff going on at all these different places. Then you've got Governor Ferguson, who's been in politics for decades, and he was on the King County Council. He was the our state attorney general. Now he's our governor. And so it's interesting to see the different responses. Barnes freaks out in front of a reporter, and one of the most heated confrontations I've ever seen between a public official and a reporter. You've got Kate Wilson, who's basically, like you're saying, gone radio silent on stuff. And Governor Ferguson is basically the only one that's communicated with me. And based on, I got the most detailed timeline of the events of an event from a communications director. I've never seen anything like it. They gave very precise times for where he was and what he was doing. So I think they're just saying the message that this is not our problem, you know. And so I see a lot of people wishing it was, but that doesn't seem to be the case. I'm not getting a public record from the governor's office 2 days after I asked for it because they did something wrong. So
Yeah. And interesting that you got the records back so quick when in other
right.
cases it takes the governor's office months to deliver records. But I mean, you're right. This is Katie Wilson's first time being in an elected position. Nonetheless, mayor of Seattle will be the most populous city in the state of Washington and a hub across the Pacific Northwest. Um, she still has 3 years left in her term. It'll be interesting to see what happens over those next 3 years, whether she goes the full term or makes a different decision before then. But TJ, appreciate you covering this and getting the records that you did. For anyone hoping to read TJ's story, you can catch it at thecentersquare.com. Otherwise, thank you for joining us for another episode of Washington in Focus.